Mr. Chew here, C-H-E-W, with Bare Algebra. Let's solve some two-step equations. I'd introduced it in an earlier lesson that will have a link here at the end. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mr. Keith E. Chew. There's a dot there. It's Mr. Keith E. Chew. TikTok and Instagram, follow me at Mr. Keith E. Chew. We're going to solve these two-step equations step by step, justifying each step with reasons. These were the two student practice problems that I wrote up on the board for you to work on. Now let's solve these step by step and write down every reason justifying them. All right, so example 1 was 16 plus 4m equals 4. Whenever I'm solving an equation like this, I think in my mind, what's happening to my m? It's being multiplied by 4, and we're adding 16 to it. You undo addition and subtraction first if there's no like terms, because you always have to simplify left and right. And when those equations get harder, that's how they're a little bit different. So, I'm going to take and undo the plus 16. Because subtraction addition has to be undone first with an inverse operation. And the inverse operations means you got to do the same thing to both sides using properties of equality to keep the equations equal, left and right side, and then solving it by isolating the variable m and saying m equals something. So in this case, we're going to subtract the 16 from the left because that's the opposite or inverse of adding 16, and I subtract 16 from the right. 16 minus 16 is 0, and 0 plus 4m is 4m. And 4 minus 16 is negative 12. If you struggle with that, I will put some videos up for integer operations in my tray arithmetic program. So I always want to justify what's going on over here. So I start out with my original equation. Then I use the subtraction property of equality. I simplify it. So these are called two-step equations. Here's my first step. It's an inverse operation. Now, what will be my second step? I need to get it so that it looks like m equals something. So the only way that I can get rid of multiplication by 4, because 4m means 4 times m, is to do the inverse or opposite of that. So the opposite of multiplying by 4 is divide by 4. So I divide the left by 4, and it looks like a fraction, but that's what that division bar, that bar is division. 4m divided by 4, that's what it means. And I would tell all of my middle school students, 4 over 4 is 1, so the inverse worked. So m will equal negative 3. So what was this step called here? Well, what did I do in blue? I divided by 4. So this is called the division property of equality. That's what it's called. And then we simplified it here. Okay? So remember what we did after we have our equation? We're saying we believe m is negative 3. That's what I think. One way to express this solution is with a graph. One way is with the variable set equal. It's just two different ways to represent the answer. So what do we do now? I have to prove it. So 16 plus 4m equals 4. I rewrite that. I'm just going to go and check it, and then I'll write all the reasons down here. Now, wherever there's an m, I'm going to put a negative 3 in parentheses. I'm going to put a little question mark above the equal sign because I don't know if it's true or not. Now I'm going to do the order of operations. You multiply before you add. still put that little question mark. And now I combine these, and I see it's true, and I got my little check here. So what were all these reasons? Well, I rewrite my original, which is how I start my check. Then I use the substitution property of equality. Then I multiplied before I added. That's called the order of operations, or PEMDAS. And then I simplified. And yes, I did make my students show every step when I was teaching in a regular classroom. How many steps? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And they had to write every single one down. Example 2. This wasn't example 2, this was student problem 2, wasn't it? So this is problem 1, problem 2. All right, so what's happening in this equation? Well, I've got a 5y on the right and I'm subtracting 16. I have to undo the minus 16 first. And you do that by adding 16. I'm going to go through and do all the steps, and then I'll write all the justification down over here. So I use the addition property of equality, add 16 to both sides. This crosses out, and you don't have to do the cross out. I would just tell them to do it, because a middle school student who struggles needs to see that. 9 plus 16 is 25. If you don't struggle, you don't have to do it. I simplified this, and that's what I'll write over here in a second. Now, I don't want 5 y's on the right. I want just 1 y, or y. So I have to take and do an inverse operation now. And it's so that we can cross it out here. So I'm dividing this side by 5, dividing this side by 5, and over here I'll write the division property of equality. This cancels out, which is what I want. 25 divided by 5 is 5. I take and graph y's and put a dot right on 5. Okay, so that is solving it. I haven't checked it yet. So now let's go back over here and let's write each step. Here's my equation. This is the addition property of equality. Right here, I simplified it. And here I divided both sides. So that's called the division property of equality. Here I simplified. And then here is the graph. So I haven't checked yet, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. So the check is usually going to take 3 to 4. So I go back up here and I rewrite my original equation. I'm going to go through and check it, and then I'll go and write all the reasons down. Wherever there's a y, I'm going to put a 5 in parentheses with a question mark above the equal sign. Do the order of operations with the question mark above the equal sign. And then 9 equals 9 is true. And all these reasons are the check, the order of ops, and simplified when I had the substitution here. I'm getting close to my 10 minutes, so I'm kind of hurrying here. Okay, so make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's important so you can see more of my videos. I am Mr. Chu. These are two-step equations. I want to help you, so keep watching. If you got questions, ask in the comments. I will answer them, believe it or not. I'll see you next time in Bear Algebra.